You know that feeling when you think you know someone, but then you discover they've been hiding the most heartbreaking secret. Well, what I'm about to tell you will change how you see the quiet people in your life forever. This is the story of Kaira Kola, a woman who looked like she had everything together on the outside but was slowly dying on the inside. And I'm warning you right now, this story is going to take you on an emotional roller coaster that you're not prepared for. By the end of this, you'll understand why some people build walls so high, and what it really takes to tear them down. If stories like this hit you in the heart, make sure you subscribe because I dive deep into these life-changing tales every week. But right now, let me tell you about Kaira. Picture this, a beautiful apartment that looks like something straight out of a home decor magazine. Scented candles in perfect glass jars, a velvet bedspread that shimmers when the evening light hits it just right. Everything pristine, everything in its place, everything untouched. Kaira had rules, you see. No visitors, no overnight plans, no last-minute invitations. She was warm, even kind to people. But her boundaries? They were polished like fine china, beautiful, but never ever broken. Everyone who knew her respected her privacy. They thought she was just particular, organized, maybe a little bit of a loner, but hey, we all have our quirks, right? But here's what nobody knew. That beautiful bed in her perfect apartment, it had never been slept in, not once. Every single night at exactly 10:17 p.m., and I mean exactly, Kaira would go through the same ritual. She'd turn off her lamps one by one, line up 2 sleeping pills next to a tall glass of water, and then she'd whisper the same words just before swallowing those pills. Let tonight be quiet. But it never was. Because around 2 a.m., when the rest of the world was deep in peaceful sleep, Kaira's mind would betray her, and the screaming would begin. Now, before I go any further, I need you to understand something about Kaira's past. Because what shaped this woman, what created these midnight terrors, it's going to break your heart. Kaira never spoke about her childhood, no old pictures on display, no stories about Christmas mornings or birthday parties. The only trace of her past was a single framed photo hidden behind her spice rack. 2 smiling parents she had lost far too soon. After they passed, 8-year-old Kaira was sent to live with her mother's sister, Auntie Joy. And despite her name, this woman had no joy in her heart. Only bitterness, only bile. Auntie Joy believed that pain built character. She believed that children didn't deserve softness they hadn't earned. And she made sure little Kaira learned that lesson night after night after night. Some nights it was ice water thrown from the doorway, jolting Kaira awake in the middle of winter. Other nights, a plate of steaming food would come flying through the air, flung in anger, scalding her small body. I remember when Kaira once asked if she could sleep with the light on. Just once. Because the darkness felt too heavy, too scary for a little girl who had already lost everything. She never asked again. By the time Kaira turned 32, she had become exactly what trauma does to people when it goes untreated. She was accomplished, composed, and deeply, desperately alone. She didn't date. She didn't explain herself to anyone, and she sure as hell didn't trust people with her silence. "I'm not really a sleepover person," she'd say with that polite laugh that people never questioned. Everyone respected her boundaries. No one saw the pill bottles lined up in the back of her medicine cabinet like soldiers in formation. But then came the work retreat. It was mandatory, 2 nights in Abuja. Kaira tried everything to get out of it, but her team lead wasn't having it. "It's just 1 weekend," he said. "You'll be fine." If only he knew. Kaira booked a double room, 2 beds, 1 for her, 1 empty, just the way she needed it to be. That first night in the hotel, the dream came as it always did. But this time, it was louder, more violent. When Kaira screamed herself awake, gasping and drenched in sweat, she heard something that made her blood run cold. A knock on the wall. A thud. Then silence. Someone had heard her. The next morning, Kaira plastered on her perfect smile and pretended nothing had happened. She went to the retreat sessions, participated in the team-building exercises, and played the part of the composed professional everyone expected her to be. But that second night, that's when everything changed. The nightmare came again, and this time, instead of just a knock on the wall, there was a soft knock on her door. One knock, then another. Kaira froze. It took everything in her power to get to that door, her hands shaking as she wiped the sweat from her face. When she finally opened it, there was a man standing there. He looked familiar, but in that moment, Kaira felt completely exposed. "I'm sorry to bother you," he said, his voice low and careful. I thought I heard something. Are you okay?" His eyes searched past her into the room, not being nosy, but genuinely assessing if she was safe. "Forgive my manners," he continued. "My name is Alex Brown." But Kaira didn't answer. She couldn't. She just held her breath until he walked away. The next morning, as she opened her door to leave for the final retreat session, there he was again, looking like a breath of fresh air, all smiles, leaning against the wall with a cup of coffee in his hand. "I didn't mean to scare you last night," Alex said. "I just wanted to check that you're okay." Kaira nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Thank you," she managed to whisper. "My name is Kaira Kola," she said, offering the smallest smile. "Here," Alex said, extending the coffee cup toward her. "I got you a cup of coffee. I wasn't sure how you like it, but it's black, no sugar, no cream. No offense, but it looks like you'll need it." His eyes were kind, genuinely kind, and that scared Kaira more than anything. "I'll be on my way now," he said, and left her standing by the door, holding a cup of coffee from a stranger who had heard her at her most vulnerable. When Kaira got back home to her flat, everything looked the same. Still, perfect, controlled. But something had shifted inside her. Her carefully constructed pattern had been disrupted, not just by the work retreat, but by someone, by Alex. That night, for the first time in years, she didn't take the pills. She didn't light her ritual candles. Instead, she sat at the edge of her untouched bed and whispered words she'd never said out loud. "I can't take this anymore. My life is falling apart." She didn't sleep that night. Because if she didn't sleep, she wouldn't scream. And if she didn't scream, maybe she could pretend she was normal for just one more day. The next morning at work, Kaira walked in with her head held high, bracing herself for the whispers, the sideways glances, the questions. But everything went on as normal. Was it possible that no one knew? That no one had heard what happened at the retreat? She was just starting to convince herself that she was safe when a voice boomed across the office. "Hello?" Kaira's eyes darted up, like a deer caught in headlights. There, standing in front of her desk with another cup of coffee, was Alex. "Alex?" she said, frowning. "Yes, it's me again. And with coffee too," he answered with that same warm smile. "Hi, and thank you, but I'm really busy right now. Is there something I can help you with?" Kaira asked abruptly, trying to create distance. "Nothing at the moment," Alex replied, completely unfazed by her tone. "But I'll be back at 1 p.m. to take you to lunch." And just like that, he walked away, leaving Kaira standing there, mouth slightly open, not sure what had just happened. She didn't realize how long she'd been standing there until the chime of her phone broke her out of her trance-like state. And that's when she heard them, the quiet whispers. Apparently, some of the staff had witnessed the entire exchange. Meanwhile, back in his office, Alex was wondering what had come over him. Was it pity? Something else? His mother, Chief Mrs. Esther Brown, would often say he had a rescue syndrome. "How you find these people, Alex, I can only wonder," she'd tell him. As much as he tried to concentrate on work, he found himself looking anxiously at the clock, counting down the minutes until 1 p.m. But this wasn't pity. Alex had seen that shattered look before, in his sister Linda's eyes, years ago, before the healing. He remembered holding her as she sobbed through nightmares, remembered his mother's gentle voice saying, "Sometimes, my child, the strongest walls need just one crack for the light." Their friendship began gently. Texts, coffee meetings, shared glances during office meetings. Kaira didn't open up immediately. She kept her answers short, her eyes guarded, always ready to retreat behind those polished walls. Alex wasn't sure if he was falling in love or simply drawn to the ache she carried. Some days she seemed open, almost ready to let him in. Other days she shut down completely, leaving him wondering if he was making any progress at all. His mother warned him, worried that Kaira might be a wounded bird looking for a cage rather than freedom. But his sister Linda, she believed. "Maybe she's the answer you've been praying for, Alex," she'd say. For months they danced around each other. Alex patient and persistent, Kaira terrified and torn between wanting connection and needing safety. Then came the evening that changed everything. After a corporate gala, a sudden storm hit the city. Roads flooded. Rideshare drivers cancelled left and right. Kaira's flat was closest to the venue. "It's fine," she said, though her voice trembled slightly. "You can stay, but just on the couch, I'm afraid." That night, the nightmares returned with a vengeance. And this time, Alex was there to hear them. He rushed to her room as the screams tore through the stillness of her apartment. What he found broke his heart into a million pieces. Kaira was curled in a ball on the floor beside her untouched bed, soaked in sweat, trembling like a leaf in a hurricane. He didn't ask questions. He didn't demand explanations. He just held her, rocked her gently back and forth, whispered to her in the darkness, "You're safe. I'm here. You're not alone. It's okay. It's okay." Eventually, she drifted back to sleep in his arms. When Kaira woke the next morning, the smell of food filled her apartment, a scent she'd never experienced in her own home. Alex had made a simple breakfast, moving quietly around her kitchen like he belonged there. "I'm sorry I helped myself," he said when he saw her. "I'm an early riser and I didn't want to just sit idle." They sat at her dining table, a table that had never been used for an actual meal, and ate in comfortable silence. Then Alex began to speak about his sister Linda, about her pain, about her long, difficult recovery from trauma. And with tears streaming down her face, Kaira finally told him everything. About Auntie Joy, about the ice water and the burns, about the endless, crushing fear that had followed her into adulthood, about the pills and the sleepless nights and the screams that came whether she wanted them to or not. Alex was livid. I could see the anger flash in his eyes, the way his jaw tightened as he listened to what had been done to this incredible woman. But he kept his face calm, for her. He just reached across the table, took her hand in his, and said the words that would begin to change everything. "Thank you for trusting me." They didn't talk about it again right away, but something fundamental had shifted. The walls now had cracks, and they could both see the light beginning to filter through. One Saturday, Alex took Kaira to an office tucked away on a quiet street in Victoria Island. "Kaira," he asked, "do you trust me?" She nodded, though her hands were shaking. He opened a door and they walked in together. It was a therapist's office, but not the pristine, white, soulless type Kaira had always imagined. This one felt like home, sunlit and draped in beautiful Adir cloth, with a gentle woman who smiled as they entered. "Welcome, Kaira," Dr. Adekoya said. "Alex says you're ready to rewrite your story." Alex squeezed her hand and then stepped back toward the door. "I'll be waiting outside," he told her, "just a call away." Kaira went through therapy for 6 months. Sometimes they went together. Most times, she went alone. At work, people began to notice changes. She looked different, her demeanor had shifted, and she was almost always with Alex. People talked, of course, they always do. But for the first time in her life, Kaira didn't care what they said. She was daring to hope. Joy was seeping in through the cracks in her armor. Alex felt it was time to take the next step, the moment that might decide everything. All he could do was hope she was ready. "Kaira," he said softly one evening, "I need to take you somewhere. There's someone I'd like you to meet." He picked her up at 6 p.m. She was as stunning as the first day he'd seen her, 11 months ago, in the elevator, one quiet Tuesday morning when she'd looked so untouchable and he'd thought she'd never even noticed him. They drove in comfortable silence until the streets began to change. Homes became mansions. Fences grew taller, palm trees perfectly manicured. "Alex," Kaira whispered, her eyes wide, "what are we doing here?" "Don't worry," he smiled, "we're almost there." They stopped at the gate of an opulent building that screamed old wealth and quiet power. Alex punched in a code, and the gate swung open like something out of a movie. As their car rolled to a stop, a porter stepped forward, ready to escort them. But before they could reach the front doors, a beautiful woman burst out of the house. "Alex!" she shrieked with pure joy. "You didn't tell me you were coming." She kissed both his cheeks and hugged him tightly, her hands lingering on his arms in a way that made Kaira's blood run cold. In that moment, Kaira froze. Her breath caught in her throat. She didn't know who this woman was or what she meant to Alex, but suddenly it hit her like a freight train. She loved him. She was completely, desperately, hopelessly in love with Alex Brown. And if he wasn't hers, if he belonged to someone else, she would break in ways that even therapy couldn't fix. Linda, Alex laughed, breaking through Kaira's spiral of panic. "Hold on, we have a guest." "Oh, I'm so sorry," the woman said quickly, turning to face Kaira with genuine warmth. "Hi, I'm Linda, Alex's little sister, and you must be Kaira Kola." The weight that lifted off Kaira's shoulders in that moment was indescribable. She stretched out her hand in response, but instead of shaking it, Linda pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. "Are you all going to come in, or are you planning to conduct this entire reunion on my doorstep?" A matronly but soft voice called from the doorway. "Hi, Mom," Alex said with a grin that transformed his entire face. As they walked inside, Chief Mrs. Esther Brown appraised Kaira, not sternly, but with the careful eye of a mother looking out for her son's heart. "Come in and welcome," she said warmly. "You must be Kaira." "Kaira Kola, Ma," Kaira replied with a respectful curtsy that came naturally to her. "Well-mannered," Esther noted silently to herself, and Kaira could see the approval in her eyes. The evening passed with laughter, stories, and soft, knowing glances. For the first time in her adult life, Kaira felt something settle inside her, a kind of quiet peace she hadn't known existed. This was what family felt like. This was what belonging felt like. In the weeks that followed, Alex and Kaira deepened their bond. They no longer tiptoed around their feelings, though neither had spoken those 3 words out loud yet. They were building something beautiful and real, something that felt like it might actually last. Until one crisp Saturday morning when everything almost fell apart. Kaira couldn't be reached, 20 missed calls, none returned. Alex turned her apartment building into a sentry post, pacing the lobby, calling her name, his mind racing through every terrible possibility. He told himself as he drove home that she'd be at work Monday. She never missed work, but that night he couldn't sleep. He lay awake, staring at the ceiling, fighting images of what might have happened to her. By 11 a.m., Monday, when Kaira still couldn't be found and no one at work knew where she was, Alex was falling apart. She had no friends he could call, no family he could contact. He was her only connection to the world, and somehow he'd failed her. Alex couldn't concentrate at work. Making excuses, he went for a drive, trying to clear his head. He didn't realize how long he'd been driving until he found himself in front of his mother's house. He sat in the car for what felt like hours, tears streaming down his face, worry consuming him entirely. The car door opened, and there was Linda, sliding into the passenger seat. She took his hand quietly and spoke no words, just sat with him in his fear. At 11 p.m., his phone buzzed. He reached for it before it could finish the first ring. "Alex." He heard a voice that sounded like heaven, but was filled with so much pain he could barely stand it. "Alex," Kaira said again, "I need you." "Where are you, Kaira?" he shouted into the phone. "Please tell me where you are, please." "I'm at home. I'm sorry, Alex. Please come." Alex drove like his car was on fire, completely forgetting that Linda was still in the passenger seat until she screamed his name and begged him to slow down. They were in front of Kaira's building in record time. The door to her apartment was ajar, and Alex's heart was pounding so hard he thought it might explode. What if she was hurt? What if he was too late? He raced up the stairs and came to an abrupt stop. There, kneeling before a sobbing Kaira, was an older woman, and he couldn't imagine it would be anyone else but Auntie Joy. "What are you doing here? How did you find me?" he heard Kaira say through her tears. Alex moved immediately to her side, with Linda taking a protective stance at the door, arms crossed like a guardian angel. I'm sorry," the older woman was saying. "Forgive me, my child. I was bitter and I only did what I thought was best. I blamed you for the loss of my sister, and I didn't treat you right. I'm sorry, Kaira. Forgive me, please, so I can die in peace. I have just 3 months left. I'm dying." Alex held Kaira close and looked directly into her eyes. "Whatever you choose, Kaira, I'll be here. I'm always here for you." Kaira took a deep breath, closing her eyes for what seemed like forever. Months of therapy flashed through her mind. All the work she'd done, all the healing she'd fought for. When she opened her eyes, her voice was steady and strong. "Is it because you're dying that you're seeking forgiveness?" she asked Auntie Joy. "When you treated me worse than an animal, you didn't think of forgiveness then, did you? For more than 10 years of my life, I couldn't sleep because of what you put me through. But I'm stronger now. I have found people who love me and treat me with kindness." She paused, gathering strength from Alex's presence beside her. "Your name is Joy, but all you hold is pain and bitterness. I should be happy about what life has dealt you, but all I have is pity. I forgive you, not for your sake, but for mine. But I never want to see or hear from you again. Never." With that, Alex and Linda escorted Auntie Joy to the door and closed it firmly behind her. As the door closed, Kaira broke. She crumbled to the floor, sobbing her heart out, not from pain this time, but from relief, from freedom. Alex and Linda held her close, whispering words of comfort and affirmation until the tears stopped flowing. Linda quietly took Alex's keys and headed for the door. As she reached it, Alex looked up and whispered, "Thank you." That night, for the first time in over 15 years, Kaira slept without pills and without screams. Real, peaceful, healing sleep. As she slept, Alex sat watching her, his heart full of love and wonder. Then he frowned as his eyes fell on an opened letter on her nightstand. It was from Auntie Joy, and suddenly he understood the weekend absence. He wished she had been able to tell him instead of shutting him out, but he understood. Some battles we have to fight alone first. The next morning, they went on a picnic. Nothing elaborate, just the two of them, a woven mat and a flask of Kaira's famous Zobo drink. "Remember the elevator?" Alex said, smiling at the memory. "You looked so serious." Kaira laughed. "I thought you didn't see me," Alex admitted, "and you looked untouchable." They both laughed at how wrong they'd been about that first impression. Then Alex grew quiet. He reached into his pocket with hands that were trembling just slightly. "Kaira Kola," he said, his voice steady despite his nerves. "I know you never expected this life, but somehow you let me in, even if it was just a crack at first." He pulled out a small velvet box and opened it, revealing a ring that caught the sunlight like a promise. "Will you let me stay?" The tears spilled before her lips could move. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Alex. 1,000 times, yes." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her knuckles gently. The wind blew softly across the field where they sat, and for the first time in forever, Kaira didn't look over her shoulder. She looked ahead, toward a future she'd never dared to dream of. Because here's what I learned from Kaira's story and what I want you to remember. Some wounds become wisdom. Some cracks in our armor don't make us weaker, they let the light in. The quiet people in your life, the ones with boundaries that seem unbreakable, the ones who always say no to sleepovers and late-night plans, they might not be antisocial or cold, they might just be carrying scars you can't see, fighting battles you know nothing about. And sometimes all it takes is one person willing to be patient. One person willing to stand outside the walls and say, "I'm here, I'm not going anywhere, you're safe with me." Alex didn't try to tear down Kaira's walls, he just stood there with gentle persistence until she was ready to open the door herself. That's real love, that's real healing. If this story touched your heart, if it made you think differently about the people in your life, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe, because every week I bring you stories that will change how you see the world. But most importantly, be that person for someone else. Be the Alex in someone's story. Be patient with their walls, be gentle with their scars. Because you never know, you might be exactly what someone needs to finally sleep peacefully through the night. Thank you for listening to Kaira's story. I'll see you next week.